Are you guys ready for the greatest X-Men stories ever told?
I am.
Oh, good. Stay tuned. Welcome back, Gainers, to another incredible, exciting, fantastic episode of ComicGains! And if you're new to the show, I'm Adam.
I'm Zach, and this Princess Rojas, looking very stormy today, doing the princess way, bowed in respect, and of course, there's a Cocoa Dog.
Yeah. That's why we had a spot of bad weather around here. Princess has been changing things. Hurricane style. All right, guys. Today is Monday. We got a really cool, fun episode for you. I was really excited to make this one. We have the 5 greatest X-Men stories ever told, voted on by us. The people voted, and we decided these are the ones we were going to talk about. So this is really cool. We'll get a little deeper into what we're doing today. But before any of that, let's start it off with a drink. We need Dr. Brew. We need to call the doctor.
We gotta get the Sip Joy Dr. Brew, 5 grams of cane sugar for the extra cane kicking.
Cane the Conqueror?
Yeah, lower sugar, could be. Lower sugar probiotic, pro refresher. So this is what it looks like. Let's see if it's any good. Let's see.
It has Cane the Conqueror in it. It's gotta be good.
Yes. Right? It's a little tangy. Not bad.
Tangy?
Not bad.
Ah.
It's a little tangy.
You know what also is a little tangy? Hanging out with us on Whatnot. Almost every Saturday, Princess is back by popular demand this weekend, though. So come hang out with the Princess on Whatnot, back by popular demand. She has a special episode this week's show. 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's hip-hop. So everyone turn your hat backwards and get ready to jump. Right?
Yes.
All right, let's get back to comics. That's what we're all here for. So, little background on what today's thing is about. We decided, hey, let's talk about X-Men books. And we wanted to talk about the 5 greatest X-Men storylines of all time. We did omit everything from the Silver Age. I don't think we have nothing from the Silver Age in this. No. Just because, they're okay. I don't think there's a couple decent ones, First Sentinels is cool. First Juggernaut is a 2-parter that's decent, but it's nothing to blow your skirt up or anything like that. I don't know why I always say blow your skirt up. We should. So, omitting the Silver Age, we get into the good stuff. And we have a couple books to show you. We'll talk about the story. If you guys really dig any of these stories, because we're kind of glossing over some of the major points of it, and then not digging too deep just for time's sake. But if you really like any of them, let us know. Maybe we'll do a full episode on one of the stories. We'll get real down into the crevices. So this should be interesting. So we're gonna go back and forth. I'm gonna do a book. Zach will do a book. Then I'm gonna do a book. Then Zach will do a book. Then it's the top 5. But we'll see how this all matches up. Should be cool. So number 1, and we're kind of starting in from closest to now to going into the past. So the number 1 one we're gonna start out is called House of X and Powers of X, which came out in 2019. We got a couple books to show you. Princess is gonna hold those up for you. And some people know this series as Hawks and Pox. And I know when it came out, there was a lot of confusion whether it's House of 10, Powers of 10, or House of X, Powers of X. What is it? Mm-hmm. I think that comes down to it House of Xavier, so I think you'd say House of X. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people might say Powers of 10. I'm not really sure. So it's kind of wishy-washy on that. But this was written by the great Jonathan Hickman, and it's actually a 2-book series. So you have one series, they're each 6 comics long, and House of X is 6 comics, and Powers of X is 6 comics. So House of X is drawn by the great Pepe Larraz, who kills it, absolutely kills it. And Powers of X is drawn by R.B. Silva, who does a great job as well. Both of them did an amazing job. I slightly lean towards Pepe Larraz's drawings on this one, but fantastic. This came out when they gave a new initiative for X-Men. They called it the Dawn of X, and then later dubbed this their Krakoan Age. So, some good books, some good covers. These are the Scotty Young versions. There's regular covers as well, but some good stuff. And I happen to think this is an amazing story. It's kind of wishy-washy, depending on who you talk to, whether people really like it or they don't like it. 2015, Secret Wars had come out, and this is big. Jonathan Hickman's big storyline that he did, And after that was over, he stepped away from Marvel completely.
Mm-hmm.
So like he just went and did some like independent projects, and we didn't see him at all until 2019 when he came out with the series. And that's kind of like a big deal. I feel like he spent some time really honing and working on this story. No one told him he had to do it. It was something in his heart that he wanted to create. And that Marvel was so big in this, they actually canceled all of X-Men books. Every single X-Men book got canceled. Uncanny, I believe, got canceled for the first time ever. So that probably made a lot of people not happy about it because the numbers ended. Yeah. And every single series was canceled, and they came out with just these 2 books to start. House of X, Powers of X. And yeah, just to give you some of the major points of it, each book you can read separately. You can read just House of X by itself and then read Powers of X. They don't really connect until like the end of the series, the series, but they came out simultaneously, so you're like read one and then the other and then back and forth. The 2 major villains, so in House of X, the big villain is Orcus, who is the combination of all the different groups in the Marvel Universe of like teams like AIM and SHIELD and Sword and anything you could think of. They created this group called Orcus, which like wants to hate mutants and do stuff like that. And then in the other book, Powers of X, you have Nimrod and the Omega Sentinels. So Nimrod, obviously a major X-Men character from the past, very powerful Sentinel in his own right. And then the Omega Sentinels are people that they added machines to that became Sentinels. And they're super powerful as well. And the other thing to remember, Powers of X takes place way in the future. So like super far in the future. The other major big retcon that everyone's probably wondering right now, I haven't mentioned of, is the Moira McTaggart retcon that they did for the story, which I personally think is the coolest part of the whole Hox and Pox. So they dubbed Moira McTaggart, who's been around since like the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Or if not earlier than that.
Yeah, Uncanny X-Men like 95 or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, she turns out she's a mutant. So she's always been like a mutant sympathizer and helps Professor X like train mutants, and she has like the island or whatever. But in this, they're like, hey, guess what? She's been a mutant this whole time. And her mutant ability is really cool because if she dies, then the world gets reset and she gets to like be born again as a baby, and she retains all of her memories of the life that she just lived. So if she like lives all the way to like 90 years old and then dies, she like wakes up again as a baby, and she also has the memories of living 90 years. And then the next time she dies, she wakes up again and has 2 lifetimes of memories. And it's very cool because there's a small caveat to it. She has to get through a puberty. If she doesn't go through puberty and doesn't become a mutant, because you know like how like mutants don't get it until after puberty, if she dies before that, she won't come back. And they do this, you could do a whole show just on her coming back and all the cool thing that she learned, where she joins forces with Xavier, and then she dies and comes back and does it with Magneto, and then dies and comes back and does it with Apocalypse. And the reason she's doing it so many times is at the end, there's always like this world-ending cataclysm where she's like, oh, I screwed up. Like, I couldn't fix the bad thing that was going to happen. So let me try again with this different route. And you kind of get the feeling like nothing good is going to come out of this. Like, it's always going to be crappy. And she runs into some cool characters like Destiny and Mystique, and they're kind of like aware of what's happening. They're like, oh, like, because Destiny can see the future, so she can also kind of see that Moira McTaggart, what's going to happen to her in the future. And this is kind of like what leads you down like House of X as that storyline's going. They do this for a bit, and you kind of like get an idea of like, well, there's some weird stuff going on. In the other book, where they're trying to attack Nimrod and Omega Sentinel, this is where they're really far in the future. You get new characters like Rasputin, which is like that mixture between magic and Colossus, and a whole bunch of other new characters. They're mixed together with a couple oldies who seem to live for a long time. So Wolverine and Apocalypse are there, and their mission is to steal information about Nimrod's creation. So they don't know the exact point of when he was created, and the purpose of that is like, if they figure out when he was created, then they can kill Moira to start the world over again, and then try to figure out a way to stop him from ever being created. So that's kind of like the whole purpose of like the Powers of X storyline. Really fun. The cool part about it is a bunch of like seemingly important characters get killed. Like Apocalypse gets killed in the future, and like actually helping them out. And in the other storyline, I know I'm kind of going back and forth because that's kind of how the book goes, but in the House of X one, after they introduce Moira and all the good stuff about it, you get this feeling where Orcus is being built and they have the space station that's out in space, and that's where they introduce the Mother Mold, which like the Sentinels are created by the Master Mold. Well, guess what the Mother Mold does?
Makes Master Mold?
Creates Master Molds. Yeah, so like there's this giant thing that's about to go online. It's also kind of connected to AI, because like once they turn it on, then it'll just start spitting out Mother Molds and get all crazy. And so like they send the X-Men team up there, and their job is to like destroy this base before it goes online. The cool thing is a bunch of them get killed. Like Cyclops gets killed, Wolverine gets killed, I think he burns up in the sun, Nightcrawler all gets killed. And they succeed in their mission at the end, but like all of the important X-Men get killed, and you're like, what is happening? This is like the opening to the story, and like all my favorite characters get killed. Well, you end up back on Krakoa. We haven't even mentioned Krakoa yet, but Krakoa is that weird island from like Giant Size X-Men 1, which they've retconned a bunch because I think at one point they like shoot it off into space and it comes back. But they show all the mutants like Charles and Magneto, and they're all on Krakoa, and then they're like, have these special like egg things, and then the mutants that just got killed, Jean and Cyclops and Wolverine, they all like pop out of these like egg things, and they're reborn, kind of like resurrected. And they call these things like the people that make these eggs the heroes of Krakoa, and they sort of retcon what some of them can do. You might know some of these ones. So there's 5 of them. There's Eva Bell, Proteus, who's like the son of Moira. Then there's Hope Summers, who Zach loves a lot. Elixir and Egg, who used to be named Gold Balls. And they do this whole resurrection process where they can bring back any mutant that's died. And it's kind of like where the story ends. House of X, Powers of X, and you kind of like lead you into like this new world. There's a bunch of cool stuff where like they add Sinister in, and they need Sinister to help like store all the DNA from the mutants so that they can resurrect them later, which is probably a bad idea and ends up being a bad idea adding him in. And there's also this weird feeling that like Charles may not be a good guy anymore, and also that this may be some kind of weird sex cult. Like they do some weird stuff. Like in that movie, The Matrix 2, where they have that weird like dancing scene. It gives you some weird feelings like that. In the cave dance.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. But I highly recommend the story. I don't think you necessarily have to read any of the series after it to really enjoy this. You can just read it as itself and be done with it. But it does lead you down a whole bunch of other stuff like X of Swords and all that good stuff. But
very cool.
Yeah. Cool story. Cool story, bro.
Oh, yeah.
What do we got next?
Well, we got Days of Future Past, which is of the original run. Only consisting of 2 issues, Uncanny X-Men 141
Which we don't have any of those.
And 142, no.
Yeah.
So it came out in 1981 from January to February. Days of Future Past occurs, they actually gave it a designation, Earth 811.
Oh, okay.
And it was written by Chris Claremont and art by Terry Austin and, of course, John Byrne.
The great John Byrne.
Yep, part of the classic John Byrne and Chris Claremont run. It's crazy. It's crazy how much influence those 2 had on X-Men. Well, Days of Future Past is set in a dystopian future. I don't know what that means. Comment down below what it means.
Dystopian future?
Dystopian,
yeah. It's like a
future.
Apocalyptic future, right? Crappy.
Yes.
Another word for crappy.
It is very crappy because all of the mutants and some superpowered people are incarcerated in internment camps and probably more than likely taken out over a period of time. And
Fog.
and it's Days of Future, yes, Fog, whatever. It's set in 2013, which is the future. At this time in the X-Men series, it was 1980. And of course, this book came out in 1981.
That always trips me out when you like reach the future point, and you're like,
and none of it happened.
And then none of it happened. Kind of like Back to the Future.
Yes,
we passed that spot.
Yes,
there are no flying cars.
So in 2013, all of North America, they don't say Canada, but it's assumed so, is controlled by the South Sentinels, and their whole goal is to, again, take out all the mutants, incarcerate them, whatever, and superhumans. They gotta kill the superhumans, and sometimes they die. And they already conquered in 2013, so now they're looking at conquering the rest of the world. And the X-Men have a solution. Their solution is, to somehow send Kitty Pryde's mind back in time to 1980 to prevent the killing of Senator Kelly, Moira McTaggart, and what was the last one? Moira McTaggart and Professor X by the Brotherhood of Evil. Brotherhood of Mutants?
Evil Mutants. You should say
Evil Mutants. Excuse me.
They're like, we're good, but we're the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Yes.
Like, kind of on the nose.
And it was led by Mystique. So they wanted to stop it, and they did. And, this whole series, very short, but it shows like what possibly could happen. Shows Wolverine dying, shows a bunch of X-Men dying. It's a pretty bad. There's only two characters that really came out of this that are actually come to the 616 universe. I believe one of the characters is Ahab, which is a mutant assassin.
Okay.
Or a mutant hunter. And reason why he comes back, because he follows Rachel Summers into the past, in some kind of attempt to capture her or have some shenanigans, prevent her from going in the past. Did not work. And she shows up in the 616 universe in the Days of Future Present series that came, something like 10 years? About 10 years after? It's a part of the X-Men Annual 14
Okay,
series.
so that's quite a bit after that.
Yeah. When Gambit shows up.
At least 4 years, 5 years later.
Yeah. And, they do a couple other spin-offs of Days of Future Past and whatnot. And I guess that Sentinel Days of Future Past World showed up in Battle World. It was like one of the battle areas.
Oh, for Secret Wars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows up in there. So it's slowly recurring over a period of time. But yeah, the main focus is Days of Future Past.
Nice.
2 issues. Yeah, pretty good series.
I liked it when I read it. I just thought it was too short, considering if that's probably the time period when they were like, it can only be 2 issues, Claremont.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, ugh.
You just
if it was 6, I think would have been really cool.
Yeah, you just got done with the Dark Phoenix saga, so they're probably like, let's do a short one.
Yeah,
let's do a short
that's
one.
True. That's true. Don't give away any of our future stuff, though.
What are you talking about?
I don't know. Next on the list, we got one of Princess's personal favorites, The Age of Apocalypse. I don't know. This might be the only one on the list that it might be. Is it good? Is it not good? You guys tell us. But it's got nice shiny covers.
Mm-hmm.
1995. This came out. Was that a good time for comics?
No, it
Maybe
was not.
The Earth 616 was replaced by Earth 295. This was a major big event / crossover. Huge crossover. And it's very similar to House of X, Power of X. They actually canceled every X-Men title on hold. I wouldn't say canceled. They put them all on hold for the series. And we're like, hey, stop everything right now, and we're going to do this instead. And the titles that they renamed everything is interesting. So Uncanny X-Men and X-Factor and Excalibur, all that stuff was just put on stop. Mm-hmm. And they're like, here's all the new titles. You have Excalibur, Gambit and the Externals, Generation Next, Astonishing X-Men, Amazing X-Men, Weapon X, Factor X. There's just switch the words around. X-Man, X-Universe, and started out with the 2 books to kick it off, Alpha and Omega, right there. So Alpha started it, Omega ended it. And who worked on these? A massive amount of people. I wrote down a couple of the names that I thought we'd recognize. There's huge lists. The writers were Mark Waid, Fabian Nicieza, Warren Ellis, Jeff Loeb. Some of the artists were both Adam and Andy Kubert. You had Ken Lashley, Joe Madeira worked on this book, Tony Daniels, Salvador LaRocca, all kinds of people. There's way more than just that. So how did this all take place? How did we get to the Age of Apocalypse? Well, a character named Legion showed up, also known as David Haller, and Legion is...
Charles Xavier's son.
That's right, Charles Xavier's son. And he's like, you know what my dear old dad would want me to do? Fix everything for him. And who's his greatest enemy of all time? That stinking Magneto. So he's like, I'm going to go back in time and kill Magneto before he can do all the naughty stuff he's going to do. Well, he made a pretty big mistake, and he went so far back because Charles and Magneto used to be pretty good pals. So when he went into the past to kill Magneto, who stepped in the way to stop him from killing Magneto? Well, his own father. Charles Xavier stepped in and sacrificed himself to stop him from being killed, and in turn killing himself and Legion killing himself by killing his own dad in the past, which is ridiculous. When this happened, only one character in all of X-Men knew the real 616. Do you know who that is?
Magneto?
Bishop. Bishop was the only one who remembered the original universe. And what kicked all this off is by Charles Xavier dying, Apocalypse kind of knew that this happened, and he was like, now's my time to strike. And in the real continuity, it's 10 years later. He doesn't strike until 10 years later, but in the Age of Apocalypse, he's like, now's my time, and he basically takes over most of the Earth, and then Magneto's like, I'm gonna uphold my dying friend's wishes, and so he creates the X-Men instead. So Magneto's got the X-Men, Apocalypse is the bad guy, and then all these books kick off, and you just have all these different teams of characters. Like Nightcrawler has a team where he's trying to find Destiny the mutant, as well as Gambit and the Externals, and they're trying to locate the Mcron crystal, which is the thing that creates the Phoenix. Generation Next actually takes place in Seattle, Washington, which is cool, and that's where Magic is being held hostage by the Sugar Man, who is, I think, one of the characters that actually comes back out of this universe later.
Oh, okay, very cool.
I think Colossus and Shadowcat are on that team as well. You have cool books like Weapon X, which is Jean and Logan and a lovers sort of book where they're together. And there's fun books like Factor X gets to show you kind of the evil side of it. It's like, in this world, Cyclops and Havoc are bad, and they work with Dark Beast, who's also bad. I think Dark Beast comes out of this world too as well. Shows up in the other one. And then you get really cool characters like X-Man, who's known as Nate Gray. So he's the true son of Jean and Cyclops, but he doesn't have any of the nasty mutant virus that Cyclops, or no.
That Cable.
Sorry, it's all the C names. But everything gets fixed. You can basically read through all these stories and get all this cool stuff, but the world gets fixed by Bishop going back in time and stopping Legion from killing Professor X, and all the worlds get fixed. But we get like a handful of characters, about 6 or 7 characters from this universe come back over into ours. Give or take how much you like the story, if it's great or not. I think people do, because they came back to this place many, many times after. Just like in the other one Zach was talking about, Secret Wars had an Age of Apocalypse world as well. They did Age of Apocalypse series, which came out later on, like 2001, as well as the Dark Angel series, which came out even later after that, which took place in this world. So love it or hate it, Age of Apocalypse, I think a cool story.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, very cool. Very fun story.
What's next?
The Mutant Massacre.
The Mutant Massacre.
This is the first full appearance of the Marauders.
Oh, nice.
Which is an important group, at least in this series. So the Mutant Massacre occurred in 1986 between October and ending in December. The two main people, plus one, that worked on this book was Chris Claremont and Louise Simonson.
Oh, Louise Simonson.
And also, I'm sure a relative, Walt Simonson, did I believe, the X Factor book.
Oh, nice.
So, but the two main were Louise Simonson and Chris Claremont, the two main contributors. So it crosses a lot more books than I actually realized.
Cool.
So it crosses between Uncanny X-Men 210, which is the prologue, and it goes all the way to 213. It also does X Factor number 9, which is also a prologue, and finishes on 10 and 11 for that series. Thor even throws in the mix.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like 373 and 374, had a nice little crossover. Power Pack 27 somehow gets into the mix too.
Cool.
Which doesn't make any sense. And technically not a part of it, but one issue, or pretty much right after, Daredevil 238 shows that Sabretooth is running away and Daredevil comes in contact with him and they have a nice little fight. Yes, so technically he's still the Marauder and he's still trying to kill a bunch of muties.
Get those dirty muties.
So the whole series starts off with these mysterious Marauders are tailing this lady called Tommy who was dating a Hellfire Club member that for some reason they didn't name, and scares them off, like freaking out. So the purpose was they wanted to follow Tommy back to the Morlock hideout that was in the sewers in New York City. And yeah, it worked out. It's kind of mysterious why they want to do that, but it shows pretty quickly that yeah, they wanted to mess them up. So yeah, the Morlocks are underground society. If you guys don't know, Morlocks are an underground society of mutants with disfigurement. They can't live in the regular life as everybody else. So they live in the abandoned sewers and tunnels and subways underneath New York, and yeah, they're just trying to live their life. And there's a lot of them. And after this moment, there wasn't a lot of them. Because the initial scene, it shows Tommy along with about 100 Morlocks. Unnamed, mostly unnamed.
It's a terrible name for them. Like, you're a Morlock.
Yes. And, well, Tommy dies along with a bunch of other people. There was at least Tommy and 100 others Morlock get killed in the initial battle before X-Factor and the X-Men could intervene. So it was just literally a mutant massacre. And I believe a few other people died here and there. Mostly, none of the X-Men are X-Factor. A lot of people get injured, like Archangel gets injured. You know, that's how he gets his wings all messed up. Somehow with that
harpoon.
Yeah, I believe so. Somehow he gets gangrene on his wings, and even with that amazing healing factor, he gets gangrene of the wings, and they had to chop it off, which kind of leads into another series, or another kind of little saga that's very interesting. But we won't get into that. Yeah, so they find the Morlocks and they mess them up and they have a bunch of fights. Interesting thing about this, before they were defeated, it kind of like sneakily, they don't say his name, but they show I guess they show like a silhouette of like Sinister.
Yeah.
Or like almost it could be Sinister, but they don't say it. So Sinister's the one that was, paying them, orchestrating the team to kill the Morlocks. And I guess there's been a history of him like sending them out to assassinate other mutants, other people.
The Marauders?
Yeah, the Marauders.
Yeah,
Marauders, excuse me. And another interesting thing is that Uncanny X-Men 350, it is revealed that Gambit was actually the person that put the Marauders together for Mr. Sinister for a favor that he got from him. So, but he did not know the purpose of the Morlocks. I don't think he would have been okay with it.
Probably not. I mean, he was a thief, but I don't know if he ever killed him.
Yeah.
Well, I probably killed some people, but
maybe.
They were all bad.
They all deserved it. Yeah, so it's a very, very bloody and a little longer series than I would have thought. And, even the Marauders are here till today. They had that one series led by Kitty Pryde.
Yeah, and they've readopted the name as a good team.
A good team, and not a murderous team.
Yeah.
Probably a little violent, but not murderous.
I don't know if Sabretooth is the best team leader.
No.
Kill everybody.
Kill everybody, whatever.
Make me proud.
That's
a good story. All right. Cool. And last but not least, you guys know we had to touch on the Dark Phoenix. She's out there. 1980. This is Chris Claremont and John Byrne, who did another story. Yeah. This stretched between just Uncanny X-Men, but started in issue 129, which is a pretty famous book, and ended in issue 138, which is, I think, when Cyclops decides to leave the X-Men, which is cool. And, this this kind of branches off another series, which I personally think that the Dark Phoenix Saga is better than the Phoenix Saga, but Phoenix Saga came out like 101 to 108, and that's where Jean Grey becomes the Phoenix. It's a cool story because you get like a not very powerful female character that becomes uber powerful and like handles her business with like the Mcron crystal and does some cool stuff. But after that story resolves, they let her keep the powers, and so she like remains the Phoenix. And that gets into a little stuff. I have a little controversy stuff that goes along with the story as well. But once that happens, a character named Mastermind, who's a pre-established character in the comics. I think he comes out in like issue 3 or 4 or something like that. Mastermind, his first appearance.
I think it's Vanisher's number 2.
Yeah, Mastermind's pretty early though. He shows up, pretty early in the original run, the X-Men run, Uncanny X-Men run. But he's impersonating another character called Jason Wingard, who is trying to join the Hellfire Club. And he uses a character that's brand new at the time, Emma Frost, who's part of the Hellfire Club. And together, they use mind control on Jean Grey. And they make her think that she's a character named Lady Grey, and that they name her the Black Queen, and she joins the Hellfire Club. And in this moment where they're trying to do mind control, they have her believe that Cyclops is killed inside her psyche. So like she has a special like Cyclops inside of her mind. And when they kill him, she snaps and becomes Dark Phoenix and basically becomes like an evil version of herself. And she messes up Mastermind. It's pretty crazy. Like she like crushes his brain into nothing until he's like a drooling nobody. And then she's like, all right, I'm now a super powerful character in the cosmic universe. Time for me to go wreck some crap. During this time, though, we get a whole bunch of new characters that are introduced that are really fun. Kitty Pryde shows up for the first time. Dazzler shows up for the first time, as well as a fun villain, Sebastian Shaw, who's like the king of the Hellfire Club as well. All fantastic. So Jean Grey, what she do? She takes to the stars, blasts up into the universe, and this takes a lot of her power, apparently. I feel like it shouldn't, but it does. And we know when she gets hungry, she's got to recharge, so she decides to eat the star. And by eating the star, it goes supernova, blows up, kills like billions of people that are all around. Like it like destroys this entire solar system of people. And the Shi'ar send a ship, and they're like, hey, let's investigate this. So she sees it and is like, hey, get away from me. And then blows up their ship. And then the 3 great powers of the universe, Shi'ar, Kree, and Skrull, get together. And they're like, we need to handle this. So like, we're going to kill Jean Grey. And then Charles is able to do like psychic barriers, kind of like in the movie, you know, where he like sets up these barriers in her head that blocks the Phoenix, and she goes back to being normal. And the council of the space people are like, this is not good. We still want her to die. And so they do this thing called the Aren Halar, which is like their best fighters are going to fight our best fighters, and whoever wins decides whether or not Jean Grey gets to live. We get this cool fight between the X-Men and like like the gladiators people or whatever, their peeps or whatever. Imperial Guard. Yeah, the Imperial Guard. And at the end, Jean Grey decides to take her own life, because after they start to win, she turns back into the Dark Phoenix, and she's like, this is not good. And she decides to kill herself so that nothing, so she can't go on being evil. And there's this really cool phrase at the end of the series that Uatu says, that Uatu, the Watcher. He says, Jean Grey could have lived to become a god, but it was more important to her that she die as a human, which I thought was like a cool statement to have. And from that point forward, Jean Grey stayed dead for quite a long time. And the crazy thing was all the controversy around this series as they were writing it, because as Stephen Grant, who's a writer in the Marvel Comics, said, they were starting to get tired of how powerful Jean Grey was as the Phoenix, and they were like, what are we going to do with this character? Like, she's just too powerful. The X-Men are going to have no villains that they can face. And they were like, all right, let's make her a villain. I'm like, that's a good idea. Let's make her a villain. And they watched this old, remember that Avengers TV show? Not the Avengers, Marvel Avengers, but that weird Avengers thing, that lady and wife. They had a show that was very similar to the Hellfire Club, and they stole some stuff from that to use it. Borrowed some stuff. Well, when they wrote out the book, they had Jean kill all of those people, and they didn't let Jim Shooter see that she did that. And a different editor at the time, Jim Scalarup, he was the editor. And when Jim Shooter found out about that, he's like, yo, dude, you're not the editor of this book anymore. I can't believe you just ruined one of our characters permanently. And they're like, no, it's cool. We'll just like say that the Phoenix did that and that we'll take it out. And then Jean Grey can like still be alive. And they were like, he said, Shooter was like, that's like us beating Hitler and then giving them back to Germany, be like, we're taking away your army, but you can still be the leader. And they're like, whoa, I can't believe you compared her to Hitler. And they use a bunch of other references like, well, at the end of The Exorcist, they didn't kill the little girl. But they came to the conclusion, and after reading it, they were like, yeah, she's too evil to bring, but what she did killing billions of people, like the readers will not be able to get behind her anymore. And even Claremont said like he can't differentiate between whether it was Jean that killed those people or the Phoenix. And so like they decided ultimately that she had to die. But they were pretty angry about it. They did not want to have to kill her, which is crazy.
That is pretty insane.
Right?
They probably messed things up, but they fixed it eventually.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a long, crazy story. We won't get into that one. But yeah, those are the 5 favorite X-Men stories of the ComicGains crew. Guys, this was fun. Super awesome. I love researching storylines. It's not all about pricing sometimes. Sometimes it's just about good stories. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what's your favorite X-Men story of all time, because there's plenty more out there that are great. These are just some of the good ones, and we think are some of the great ones. But leave comments down below. We'd love to hear what you guys think is awesome. And as always, hit the like button for the princess, because she loves it. Subscribe so you get tons of great content like this. And Zach, you got anything special?
Yeah, sure. How you do that is you take a beloved character that might not be the coolest in the world, but you give it a few decades and you're just, or almost a few decades. It's like, I think, decade and a half. Or maybe it's only a decade, now that you think about it. And you put him in another title, Amazing Adventures, and you know what would be cool with this character? Make him really hairy. Make him furry, baby. Because everybody loves furries. I do. And then, of course, because the gray wasn't hidden right, you go blue. And that's how you become the Blue Beast. Iconic, classic, and historic.
It's like the smartest thing anyone ever did in comics. Like, such a lame character, and they're like, let's make him blue and give him Wolverine's haircut. And they're like, ta-da! Best character in the world. Right?
Everybody loves that character.
Everybody loves Beast.
And that's how you get those gains.
Alright, guys. Until we see you next time, stay safe and get those
Gains.
X-Men gains.
X-Men gains.
Woo!